So, traditional Jewish, Christian, or Muslim. To understand atheist and agnostic as well as many times.
Hi, Preston.
Hi, Katie. It's another great one. We're doing another interview on the Holy Watermelon podcast.
We're supposed to say it at the same
You're
time.
right. I didn't lead up to that
Wow.
properly at all.
We're doing another interview today on
The Holy Watermelon podcast. Yeah, it's a little bit corny.
No, it's excellent.
Would you like to give our guest the professional introduction, and then I'm going to tell a personal story?
All right. So, Dr. Glen Fairen is a visiting assistant professor at Oklahoma State University and an adjunct lecturer at the University of Texas, El Paso. Glen received his PhD in religious studies from the University of Alberta in 2015, which happens to be the year I started at the U of A. He is also the author of As Below, So Above, Apocalypticism, Gnosticism, and the Scribes of Qumran and Nag Hammadi, published by Gorgias Press in 2008, which is long before your PhD.
It was my master's dissertation. Actually.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened.
Nice.
Cool.
The reviews have been terrible, so it's great. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming to do this
Thank you.
interview. I'm super excited to pick your brain on
Oh.
all sorts of religious studies things.
So I'm curious, what prompted you to get into religious academia?
I want to say it's something deep and profound, but I actually was not failing, but doing poorly in my science degree. I was in pre-med for a little while in my undergrad. Then I ended up getting a minor in astronomy, I think, but I sucked at the numbers. And then I took an intro to world religion class. And that changed it. A teacher, she looked at me and said, "So Glenn, why can't you have sex with your parents?" And I'm like, that's a good question.
Is it?
One kid behind me said, "Because mom's ugly." And I'm like, well, that's probably the wrong answer. But the whole idea, we talk about taboo and classification, and then I'm like, I guess I'm doing this now. So
I feel weird about that being the question that comes up.
She's like a brilliant flake. She'd sit on the desk and swing her feet like a 5-year-old. She's like, "So why can't you have sex with your parents?" Glenn? I don't know. So we talked, and then it just went off on some weird tangent. And then I started taking, New Testament classes, Gnosticism classes. A new prof showed up at the U of R in Regina. So I started working with him, and here I am on your couch.
Nice.
Yeah.
I feel like we skipped a lot of steps.
Yeah, there's all the boring hand wavy stuff. Yeah,
Sure.
Yeah. No, it was. I always liked stories of gods and myths, and I grew up religious. Family was they were pretty devout, but vanilla flavored. Like nobody really had a denomination, but we were really believed in whatever. And I just assumed, I don't know, because I didn't hate gay people and I didn't follow the Bible literally, that I must be a bad person. So then I thought, I'm going to study this, and then here I am. So yeah, that's sort of what happened. And then I taught a witchcraft class, which is so weird.
Which we'll get into.
Yeah, I'm sure. And people tend to like that one a lot. Yeah.
So, did you attend church pretty regularly then as a kid? Or growing up?
No. We did off and on. My mother, when she remarried, we married some guy who wanted to have like bi-weekly or twice weekly Bible studies. So we had to go to church and we had a Bible study. And it was just this sort of patriarchal, end of kind of Pentecostal almost vibe to it. Like we were told, like, if you don't convert, Jesus is going to come in and like rip your head off. Like it was really, I don't know I can't remember the movies. There were these movies that the evangelical church put out in the States where the rapture, and they had it was like a whole series of them.
Yeah, from the ones from the 70s.
Yeah.
What are they called?
I know.
They're like fantastically bad.
Oh, but terrifying when you're like 9.
I watched them all, and it's like, what are they called? We've talked about it in past episodes. It's gonna bug me. I'll think about it.
I'll never forget this. What was it? It was a stainless steel guillotine. That was the thing. And they would cut your head off if you didn't believe, because you missed out on the rapture. Barcodes were the mark of the beast. That was a big thing.
I mean, it's the vaccines now.
The vaccine, I know. I mean, I'm like in the original 666. That's the mark of the beast. Thank you very much, Maiden. Thank you. But yeah, like, so that just had me terrified of anything vaguely religious. And then I started thinking for myself. That sounded condescending. I didn't mean that quite the condescending it was, but I was more interested in the history of all this stuff. And then I just started taking classes and had to take languages.
The movie's called A Thief in the Night.
That's the
and
one.
You can find it on YouTube, and it's got this intro song just like slaps. It's so good.
Oh,
Right, we have talked about this
We
before.
have, yeah, and I
and there's
played
about
it for
4
you.
of them. And
Yeah.
Yeah. There, we went every week to watch like an hour and a half. So it went about eight times. And it was just this, if you don't repent, God's going to come in and F you up. Like that was sort of the vibe. I was terrified. Like I thought, I'm dead. Like,
How old are you at this time?
It's probably about 9 or 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I kind of started rebelling around 12. I bought Iron Maiden's Number of the Beast. I'm like, okay, this is going to mess people up. So then I started listening to that and then direct reach where I am today.
Nice.
I did listen to it on the way here, actually.
Get you in the right frame of
Get
mind
me in
for
the
a
right frame of
religious
mind.
study.
I like it.
podcast.
Exactly, yeah.
I love it.
So the academic path requires an awful lot of writing. Can you tell us about your master's thesis that made it into a book that got published?
Yeah. Well, the master's, I didn't know what I wanted to write, which was weird. I was studying under a gentleman named William Arnell. He's pretty renowned, New Testament religious studies scholar. Somehow ended up at the University of Regina. They lucked out getting him. I just started taking classes and wasn't sure. I'd found an article somewhere that said the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Gnostics were not the same religion. And I remember thinking, well, that's stupid. You're not even talking. Like, it seemed really weird to say, so I started writing. And then 200 pages later, I defended my dissertation. And then about a year later, I was at the U of T for a little while. A publisher approached me because a friend of a friend sent it to them, and they gave me a book contract. It was really weird. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it was a real shock. I'm still not sure what to make of it. I haven't published my PhD. I got too busy right after I finished, but it was so weird to have my first publication be a book. I mean, it's a small publisher, but it still counts.
Absolutely
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
And to be I have the odd, in my career, the odd client that wants to publish a book, and very rarely do they get someone approaching them.
Yeah, that was, I thought it was fake. Like, I was convinced it was some scam. Like, who's going to scam you? I'll give it to you for free. But, yeah, it was a real shock, actually. And I think the argument more or less still holds up. I changed quite a bit of it still, but I mean, that was 12 years ago, something like that, 14. Oh, God, how long ago was that?
That was 2008. So
14.
Oh, my
It's
geez,
been a while.
I better get back in writing some more, I guess.
So what is the thesis of this book?
Oh.
So see if we can sell it a little bit.
Yeah.
Since
Oh,
it's-
yeah, because I mean, it's
Available on Amazon?
Yeah,
It is.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
yeah,
on
okay.
Amazon, which
Perfect.
is so cool. The argument is that for some reason, the so-called Gnostics, while they're actually Christians, would be ignored by the average everyday person in the last century. But the Dead Sea Scrolls, they look for things about Christianity when there's nothing about Christianity. So I was like, well, this is really strange. Why is one ignored and the other kind of embraced? So I started thinking about, what kind of shape these writers were, or what kind of arguments they were trying to make. And so basically my argument was that they are very similar. Just one is apocalyptic and one is Gnostic. They're both using the Book of Enoch as sort of a big, I mean, that's assuming they're not all monolithic. There isn't like Dead Sea Scrolls coherent, Gnostic stuff coherent, but there's hints that do seem to overlap more than what people want to assume that are different. And I think they're more similar than they're different, at least some of the arguments anyway. So
I think that's one of the things that we remind people all the time on our podcast is that no group is monolithic.
No.
There's so much variety. And
oh,
the
and
more
that's
people-
the fun part, right? The variety. Like, I mean, when I teach a class, I call it Christianities or Judaisms because it is not one monolithic thing. I mean, students get all twitchy about it and the grammar is really awkward. Like Islam sounds really dumb, but it still gets the point across. But yeah, I mean, there's this huge variety, and saying absolutely this and that or opposite is, I think, sloppy scholarship. So whoever wrote that article, bad. I don't remember who wrote it, actually. It was so long ago, but it really got me angry. I was weirdly upset by that article, and that's sort of got me writing.
Hopefully made your master's a little easier to be that angry about something.
Yeah, it
Okay,
helps. Yeah, like any sort of long academic stuff is so exhausting. I mean, I spent, what was it? I think I started writing it in January, and then I finished in November. And it was just me, reading books and writing and complaining about it to my ex. And yeah, it was lovely. But it finished, so that's all that matters. So yeah.
One of the things I love best about academia is the arguments on such niche topics between experts. And so, where do you find yourself disagreeing with other experts?
Well,
or scholars in general?
Yeah, I mean, I think with me, like, I tend to, God, there's a bunch. Like, when I think about it, there's so many. Like, one of the ones is I don't think there's any such thing as Gnosticism or Gnostics. That's not a thing.
Right.
Scholars, that was sort of the dominant idea about 10 years ago. It sort of shifted again. The shift's wrong. They're completely wrong. Yeah. I mean, the four other people who know what I'm talking about will agree with me or disagree.
I took a few classes with Lauren Zellick.
Oh, yeah,
and
Lauren, yeah.
He
was on my committee.
Yeah, he was very clear, like, the Gnostics, not what you think they are.
No.
The whole time I was working with him.
Yeah, Lauren, and it's funny, Lauren is so smart, smarter than I am, but we have very different takes on topics. Like,
Sure.
We both taught a class on Jesus the same semester. And I mean, if you went into his class and went into mine, there'd be a completely different kind of set of arguments and set of discussions. Like, the evidence for the historical Jesus, there just isn't.
Yours was in the evening, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I was going to do it, but couldn't do evenings.
I always get stuck with the evening classes, but I tend to, I'm not really awake until about noon.
Sure.
Yeah, I went to school for 20 odd years, so I didn't have to get up early. But yeah, it was fun. Like, that's one of my colleagues and friends, Patrick Hart. He has his doctorate as well. We've been arguing about evidence for the historical Jesus for 10 years, I guess. And it's just one of those, like, just chasing your own tail. Like, it's sort of what questions you want to ask, and that's usually where you end up. So I just got my evaluations from OSU, and some kid said that as an atheist, I shouldn't deny the historical presence of Jesus. Like, I never said that. I thought it, but I never said it. I would never say that in class in Oklahoma. Yeah, that's, what else do I argue about? I will argue about anything for the sake of arguing. I mean, there's, like, the Jesus one's a big one. How to define religion. Is it special? That's one we get. And that's the problem with, like, theology. It tends, not the problem, but the different assumptions that it's somehow unique or special. And I'm like, no, it's just, we classify things as religion. It's not like doesn't exist in the wild, right?
Right.
Go around point, that's religion. That's not. It takes work for something to be religious. A religion gets tax exemption.
Yeah.
That's one of the defining features of modern understandings in North America of religion, which strikes me as hilarious. That's what you need, the state to authorize your thing to be really religious. Not divine, not anything else, but the state. Great stuff. Fantastic. That sounded sarcastic. I meant that legitimately, yeah.
I mean, I don't think churches should be tax exempt, so.
But as long as they are, let's take advantage.
I mean, some, like, I'll say United Church of Canada, pretty progressive social agenda, been on the forefront of, say, same-sex unions since the 80s. Yeah, they should be tax exempt. Other ones, not so much.
Church of Scientology.
Yeah, well, you know what? I have a weird soft spot for the Church of Scientology and the Mormons. The Mormons are just, they're so nice. And they're just in their little white shirts and being polite, and I don't know, there's something really charming about Mormons. I don't know why. But the Scientology is interesting because people keep pointing out how it's not real, and it's like this science fiction writer who made up this stuff, and who could believe in an alien, Xenu or whatever. I'm like, yeah, because the dead Jewish zombie is so much more real, right? Like,
so a lot of your work is done in spooky religious traditions. Can you expand on the work you do there, what draws you there, and what keeps you there?
Sure. I feel like there should be this really profound academic reason, but I was really a New Testament scholar and Gnostic scholar, so-called Gnostic. And then I was given the witchcraft class in, like, 2011 at the U of A, and I thought it was done poorly, so I retooled it and make it about theory and method. then I started researching, occult, so-called occult stuff, and Theosophical Society and Scientology and Wicca. That was my undergrad. I spent time with a Wiccan coven in Regina and interviewed them a lot. That is the weirdest thing that ever. I mean, hanging out with Wiccans in Regina, Saskatchewan. That is deeply bizarre. So I went to a ritual. I wrote a skyclad.
Oh.
Yeah, I know, right?
Wow.
Did not expect that.
Bold.
I walked in like, oh, we're going outside. Are we? It's Regina in spring, so it's like 3 feet of snow. I'm like, you guys go outside, skyclad if you want. I'm gonna just take notes over here.
In my parka, yeah.
I'm not gonna say whether I went skyclad or not.
Oh, wow.
Well, I mean, if you're in a room full of naked people and you're the only one clothed, you stand out. Yeah. But,
when in Rome, do as the Romans do.
Exactly. Yeah. But
when in Regina, do as the
Regina, drop trowel and go outside. Yeah. So I was really interested in like goddess movements and alternative religions, alternative to Christianity, and I just started kind of, I got the class. That was sort of the weird thing. It wasn't my area, and I just sort of morphed into, we talk about Harry Potter, and we've been talking about QAnon, how it's the new satanic panic. That was this semester, and Dungeons and Dragons, and board games, and all that kind of stuff. So it goes the whole gamut, So it gets to indulge on my weird quirks, and I get to pretend I know what I'm talking about. It's fantastic.
I love it. We've kind of found in our research and talking to other people that whenever someone kind of bashes the occult, or we had a guest on, but he was accused of being involved in the occult, that the people who say that actually have no idea what the occult is.
No, that's the best part.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't wear it today, but I have a little Wiccan pentagram or a little pentagram. I got it in Salem, so it's super legit.
Nice.
Yes. And I was at a meeting, the religious studies group in Oklahoma, and I'm sitting there, and this guy asked me, he goes, "Are you an occultist?" And I said, "No, I play one on TV." And he was wearing a crucifix. Go, "Are you a Roman executioner?" And he didn't think it was funny. But it's true. It's a cipher for negative, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cult means bad. It doesn't. Nobody knows exactly what it. It's a basket they put things in. It's not. It's about the classification, not about the thing itself. It's like magic, and why is Jesus not a necromancer? It's because we like him, so he gets to be religion. A cult, we don't like it, so we'll call it a cult. That's usually how it comes down. Like, it's really a point of preference, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I'd love to be accused of occult stuff. Nobody ever accuses me of that. It's not fair.
Are you a part of the occult, Glenn?
Yes, I am. But I can't tell you more. I'd have to summon, I don't know, Gozer the Gozerian from Ghostbusters. Yeah.
Oh.
Deep cut. Yeah.
Is there a 2-sentence definition you can give us of the occult, or is it literally just air quotes bad magic?
There's a bunch that have come up with definitions,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not bad, but they never quite encapsulate everything. For me, it is that which is like what we would call religion, but there's something inappropriate about it, however you want to define it. So it's kind of religion with a quarter turn off, I think.
Okay.
I like that.
So it's simply, people will disagree with it, but for my purposes, I don't want to make a distinction between, Catholicism and Scientology. Why should we make that distinction? For instance, why not compare them in parity and see what happens?
That's one of my questions is, are there any intersections between the occult and mainstream religion that might surprise people or something?
I think it's to me that people find distinctions. That's the surprise to me. Like, if you pull back and think about it, it's something you've never experienced. So if you've never experienced, say, Catholicism, and you've never experienced Scientology, you look at them, yeah, there's differences, but is one good and bad? Like, that seems to be the overarching way that people think about it. So I think the definition or the overlaps are almost too numerous in a lot of ways. It sort of depends what questions you're asking.
Fair.
Like if I want to talk about the Gnostic heretics, then they're a cult. Or if I want to talk about them in a different way, then they get to be Christian, right? Like it really does depend on the questions you ask. So when somebody says a cult, if I'm out and about, that's different. But if it's in class, it's like, you got to define that. You got to define that shit in paper. I'm gonna come down on you.
I feel like we need definitions included in papers on almost everything we talk about in religion.
Well, and the thing is, people assume they know what religion is. That's the problem. Like, I go into a class and everybody already knows about Christianity. So how do I talk about that? You know, I try to deconstruct it or make it a little more unfamiliar so you can think about it. So it's usually jokes and making fun of stuff so people laugh, or not, as the case may be. More not, I guess. But yeah, it is one of those weird topics where people come into it, no understanding of it, but they know it already. Like Richard Dawkins, for instance, no idea about religion, but he's apparently an expert on it. So it's very strange. I find that really weird about religion. Nobody would go into quantum physics and just say, well, I heard a guy talk once, so I'm an expert, and I'm going to take a class on it. Like, that's just so weird to me. So
Dawkins knows why he's an atheist.
Yeah,
and that's the whole yard.
It is. I mean, like, I was reading The God Delusion. I'm there like 90% of it, and that's why I think he pisses me off, because I'm 90% there. But he made some comment about how Buddhism isn't a religion; it's a philosophy because there's no God. I'm like, well, that's stupid.
That's not how we define religion.
That's not how anybody's defined religion. And then he said something about the problems in Ireland would not exist if it wasn't for religion. I'm like, have you heard of history?
Right?
Yeah, like, ugh. And that's when I shot him, Your Honor. Like, that was my reaction. And it's funny because, people are so sure that they know it when they don't. You know? And I find that really interesting.
So what have you been teaching most recently?
Actually, not very much. My job is just starting as a visiting assistant professor. So I taught 6 sections of Intro to World Religion and 1 section of witchcraft.
Okay.
But we changed the term, we changed the name. It's a magic, witchcraft, and occult, I think is how we framed it. We kind of played around with it a bit to make it a little more palatable to the folks down there. Because it was weird because I took the class and it was kind of full, but like here it's like, I was pulling in like 120 people. Now it's like, only 30 of you guys here. In Canada, I'm a total rock star. But yeah, that's what I was teaching there, and I'm teaching a class on apocalyptic narratives next year. Yeah, I taught it once before. I didn't like how it worked out, so I'm going to reframe it. And I'm working on contemporary religious movements class. So, but I mean, I'm trying to worm my way into a more permanent position there. So.
Sure.
Yeah.
Fair enough. And then you get sabbaticals.
Well, yeah. I mean, that you need tenure, then you get the sabbatical.
Okay.
Yeah. I'd just be happy to get a steady paycheck. Like,
Fair.
that sounds terrible, but
That's the way it goes, though.
Yeah.
We need to get paid.
You do, yeah. And it's, I mean, it feels like stealing in a lot of ways. Like, I get to talk about shit I like. So, and you got to listen. This is awesome. You're giving me money? Fantastic.
Right.
And I get to pretend to be a doctor. So, yeah.
You're not pretending.
I know.
He's a real doctor, everyone.
It still feels weird to me. Like, I see a medical doctor, that they totally know more stuff. But again, if you're having a heart attack, don't come to me. You need an abstract worked on? Come to me. You need something translated out of Latin? I'm your guy. Anything else? No.
Did you do Latin for your college or your university language?
I did Latin in my undergrad because I thought I wanted to learn about religion. Of course, none of the stuff I studied was written in Latin.
Of course not.
Because I was just an idiot. I just took it. So I took New Testament Greek. I took classical Greek. I took Coptic. I took German. So I can read a lot, but I can't speak very well. Like, I don't speak any of them.
The language courses that, if you're studying old languages for academic purposes, you're never taught to speak it.
No. My Greek prof would make me say it because he thought my pronunciation was the worst. So he just burst out laughing all the time. And it was fun. Like, it actually was a lot of fun. Like, I mangled it like crazy. But yeah, I took a bunch of languages, like 4 or 5 years of Greek and like 3 years of Latin and a year and a half of Coptic and a year of German. Like, it was a lot of work. And you lose it so quickly. Like, if I need to translate something, it might take me way longer than it should. I can work through it, or just say, I don't need that language for this argument. And,
Sure.
It's languages are very humbling, I have to admit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I am not a linguist. I was a hooked on phonics kid, so I have no idea. So, but yeah, that was a big part of the training is the language, at least in my field. Other fields, you can avoid it if you pick the right topic. Like, if I wanted to do Mormon studies, I could totally ditch language.
Right?
Excellent.
Everything started in English. It was great.
Yeah, and I kind of wanted to, but then you have to talk to people, and I don't want to do that.
There's that.
Yeah, I like books, dead people nobody's heard about. That's the best, because you can just say whatever you want, and nobody knows, right?
Sure.
Like my dissertation, my PhD, nobody knew what I was talking about, which is great. I can be obscure and mysterious.
Yeah, it's kind of nice.
Ooh.
Yeah. In the same way that people expected my religious studies degree to be in theology,
Yeah.
I mean, which is how I ended up minoring anyway. Everyone's like, so you're taking Latin, right? I'm like, I have no use for Latin. I'm mostly looking at the Bible, and the Latin Bible is functionally useless, academically speaking.
Yeah, for sure.
Greek and Hebrew was where I did my language credits.
I would say that Greek would be more important than the Hebrew, because the New Testament, the writers of the New Testament were probably reading the Greek Hebrew Bible version of it. So that would be where they were running with it.
Yeah.
For sure, yeah. But bumping up against what is theology and religion is always tough. Yeah. I still can't quite, it's hard to articulate it. Like people always ask, oh, you going to be a minister? Like, yeah, sure.
I didn't study God in university. I studied people and traditions and history.
I mean, theology is really interesting. It's
It is
really intellectually vigorous, but it's a whole other set of questions.
Yeah.
And the two are not the same. Like I'm guessing if I took a class on Jesus in, say, from St. Joe's, more theologically geared, it'd be very different than one you would take at a non-theological place. So, yeah. But yeah, people don't get it.
That's what we're trying to fix.
Oh, obviously, it's a great idea. I mean, that's one of the problems with religious studies. We have terrible branding. I mean, nobody knows what we do. Even our conferences are, part religious studies, part biblical studies, part theology, and that's just confusing in my mind. So
this leads into one of our questions really well. How can we make religious studies more accessible?
Strippers.
Oh.
No, I don't know.
I mean,
that's terrible.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say no. And this is why you don't have tenure. That's a good question, because I think making the distinction between religious studies and theology, I think that's both a service. Makes theology more brand appropriate and makes religious studies different enough that people will want to take it. Like, just, people come into religious studies class because I want to know about Jesus. Like, well, you're in the wrong class. Like, go to this other one. And not to be a jerk about it, but it is a different class. Like, I don't go into an English class to study psychology because Shakespeare had a mind, right? They're two different disciplines. So I think making that distinction clear and not blurring the lines, which I think a lot of programs, a lot of faculties do, unfortunately. But it's also financial burden as well, I'm sure. Like, where I am now, we have a minor in religious studies, but we're part of philosophy. And I'm in a hallway full of philosophers. So it's very weird, because it's all very, like, we're doing different things, right? So, yeah, I think, I don't know. I mean, embrace the difference, I think, would make it cooler or make it more accessible. Like, try not to be theology. Be as sort of out and proud, I guess. And it's, Pride Month, so maybe kind of riffing on, like, taking something from that, be really overt about it. I think that would be, that it's not theology in a sense. Not that it's against theology, it's just not theology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think religious studies should be taught kind of K to 12? We've had this.
Oh, yeah. Why not?
I think so. I think it should be thrown in with social studies.
I think getting the social out of religions, like getting the wet out of water, like, I think it should just be part of social studies. Like, you can't talk about culture without religion in some way, I think, or vice versa. I mean, the Catholic school boards have religion classes, if I'm not mistaken. I think they should do that in the public as well, as long as it's not indoctrination.
Right. Don't teach theology K to 12, but religious studies.
Yeah, why not? Yeah. I mean, just a little bit. Just a smidge. I mean, mind you, what 8-year-old's going to care?
Well, the average 8-year-old has a whole unit on feudal Japan. Let's talk at least for a day on what they believe religiously.
That's true. Feudal Japan, though, I keep thinking samurais and swords, like, cool stuff.
I mean, it is super cool, but so are the commies.
Yeah, spirits are cool too.
The commies are pretty badass.
You can pop on Spirited Way for a day and call it.
Yeah, that's true. You could call it mythology or something. World mythology. Though,
If we can get people to start using the word mythology properly, that's great.
But mythology has the same problem as a cult. It's negative, like Christian religion, Jewish mythology.
But teach children to use the word properly and commit to that growing up. We're in a better place.
Like where I am now, they were trying to get a class on mythology, and it was misunderstood by the administration. It kind of came off like we were being dismissive of these other traditions. Like, no, we have like 3 classes on Christian mythology. It's all Christian studies. Here's another kind of thing. But people still if I call Christianity mythology, if I say the Christian myth, you've lost half the people in the room. That's the problem. It's not a myth if I believe in it. I had a personal experience with Jesus. Remember, he got me pregnant. So, that's not nice. Don't laugh. That just encourages. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. No, go ahead. It's fine.
Okay.
It's your basement. I can.
Fair.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know how you could make it sexier. Like, we've tried. Like, I mean, talking about Harry Potter and Dungeons and Dragons kind of helped, which is weird how Dungeons and Dragons became sexy. That's a whole other podcast right there.
We can't kick them out. They're too popular.
Did you ever see Dark Dungeons?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Of course I did. Yeah. I love that stuff. I got all the chick tracks. That's like how D&D convinces people to do evil stuff. I used to be a dungeon master. I couldn't get anybody like just to agree to a day, but yeah, the dark dungeons and all that kind of that stuff's great. Yeah, like, so lean into that stuff. Like, make it sexy. Like, I think that will draw people and make it very different from theology, for instance.
And we're now that we're talking about this, I'm thinking about our most popular episodes. And how, as we get to more traditional religious topics, those have lesser views than we did one on parody religions.
Oh, like Pastafarianism?
Yeah. And, Dudism and
the
especially the sexier, more fun internet tropey.
Yeah. We did that one. That was kind of all. That's like one of our most listened to episodes.
It's funny how the jokey religions become real in a sense, like Jediism.
Right.
I'm like, as long as they don't talk about metachlorians, and we can be a religion. But once you go there, it's stupid. But I can't buy into that. Anyway, the idea of like, when does a joke become real, right? Like the Rosicrucians, Fraternity of the Rose Cross, may have started out as a joke, and then it became a religion, right? Cthulhu, that was a hack literary idea that people kind of bought into, which is pretty neat. So
I think 100 years from now, you might have a few people who are genuinely worried about appeasing the great old ones.
Well, yeah, like I remember years ago, I was at a garage sale, and I was looking at books, and this elderly lady said, "Well, I have this book downstairs. I'm afraid to touch it. If you can get it, it's yours." So I went down, and it was like the Necronomicon.
Oh yeah,
which is like basically just a bad take on H.P. Lovecraft. Yeah, I thought it was real, like as a teenager. So I'm like, let's see if we can worship some demons, but it didn't work out.
Yeah.
Just, caused a lot of fires and broke a few mirrors. It was a bad time. Yeah. That's how I got expelled from school. No, it's not. But yeah, like it's funny what was sort of a joke will become real, and like, even, I shouldn't say a joke, but something like Mormonism seems ridiculous in a lot of ways. But it's become almost like it's fully accepted as a stream of Christianity, where 100 years ago they were killing people who were Mormon. They were being persecuted. So, I mean, what changes in 100 years? I mean, hell, what changes in 10 years? That'll be interesting. Like, Wicca became legit for some reason, which I think drove a lot of Wiccans crazy in some ways.
Probably.
Yeah, because there's something, who doesn't want to be a bit of an edgelord, right? Like that. Like, I kind of, like, D&D is cool.
The closest I get to edgelording lately, I'll point out that Christians worship Lucifer every now and then, or that Freemasons worship Lucifer.
Oh, yeah.
Because, the name Lucifer shows up one time in the King James Bible.
Yes.
And it's not actually reference to the devil, but, the morning star, that it is the same word basically as a title for Christ more than once in the Bible.
Oh, yes.
And that's my good edgelording that I get in every now and then.
Yeah, that'll some people just look at you. You can hear them blinking. It's like, I felt the spirit. Like, that'll be the response. Like, okay, good enough. All right.
So another facet of parody in religion and art. I remember you have a tattoo, and I can see it a little bit every now and then. You told us about
This one?
when I took your class back 8 years ago or whatever it was.
Oh, yeah. I got this, it's a mouse, and I designed like a stained glass window for this mouse. And because I did, most of my dissertation was on the so-called heretic Marcion, who was one of the first Christians who came up with the New Testament, and he denied the Hebrew Bible was legitimate for Christianity, all this kind of great stuff. But there's no images of him, and he was called the mouse that gnaws at Scripture by one of his enemies. So I thought I'll get a stained glass window if he was. So Saint Marcion was sort of my idea. So Lauren saw it and like, he calls me Marcionite all the time when he sees me. It's super weird. Like walking down the street, he goes, "You Marcionite!" Like, what the hell? Oh, it's Lauren. So deeply. I was on a date once and he did that. And the person says, "What is he talking about?" Like, it's such a long story. I don't know where to go.
So there's more story to it.
The tattoo? No, that was it. Just Lauren trolling me. Yeah.
Okay.
All my tattoos have like a religious studies theme to it.
Oh, interesting.
Okay.
Yeah, I got one for every degree, and I got a B when I did my first international paper.
Nice.
It was in Salem. We were drunk. It was great.
Fun.
Yeah, it was fun. Well, we picked the tattoos, then got drunk. So it was not.
Okay, yeah.
It's a better story if I say I'm drunk, but it's
right.
I just thought I like bees.
Sure.
Yeah.
Bees are important.
I think they're important. Yes. So are international conferences. So yeah. But no, it's funny. A lot of religious studies folks have tattoos. Like I've known quite a few. I can think of like 4 or 5 people off the top of my head that have weird religious studies tattoos, which is kind of trippy.
Cool.
Yeah. I had a guy in the LRT the other day berate me for I have a leg tattoo, has like a phrase from the Kabbalah on it. He was all mad because you shouldn't use, gods on your body. I'm like, yeah, there's no such thing as God. I mean, whatever. Like, don't get mad, man. It's my body. Get lost.
Right? The number of people who want to police other people's bodies is becoming a bigger and bigger problem.
Yeah, I mean, just look at the news today.
Right?
Oh, sweet, merciful crap. Yeah, it's depressing. Yeah, the policing of other people is fascinating too, and how the claim to religion is somehow a good enough reason.
It validates for some people really awful behavior.
Yeah. Or it negate, like one of the ones I always got was, well, you can't say that, that's disrespectful of my religion. And I'm like, that's not my job to be respectful. And I'm not being disrespectful. It's just that you've got to bug up your butt over it. And I was clearly marking today, so maybe it's in my head. But there's that sense that you got to give that which is religion respect, right? There's something much like a cult is bad, religion deserves respect. I'm like, why?
Well, and we've talked about this before. I think that's where so many problems that we're seeing with religion come from now, is because we've been told not to talk about it in polite company.
Yeah.
So now really extreme beliefs get to fester. You don't have anyone checking them to be going, that's really fucked up.
Yeah.
You believe
it is. It is.
So
and how like certain ideas get ignored, like what's in a religion versus, this religion is all about peace and love. Well, except for that crusade. I mean, that's the problem. We'll ignore that. Or, like there is some weird, almost willful ignorance about religion, which drives me crazy. That's why we need religious studies, at least to learn about it.
Yeah, there's so much nuance and so much nonsense in every tradition.
Oh, yeah.
It's just fascinating.
It's so weird what people will hang their hat on. Like, that's the part that gets me.
Mm-hmm.
Like a little element of a tradition that people ignore everything else, but they hang on to that. Like, I can't remember what verse it is, but like in the New Testament, Jesus says, I don't come to bring peace. I come to bring a sword, right? Nobody brings that one up. Like, let's go beat up some people. Like, nobody uses that. It's always this other element for some reason, which I find fascinating. It's like the U.S. with the Second Amendment, right? Like, nobody gets all defensive over the 11th. I don't even know what the 11th is, to be honest. But that's, you know what I mean? Like, it becomes the cipher for something else. So, yeah, it's deeply weird.
Yeah.
Didn't want to get in Roe versus Wade, but here we are. Yeah. Man, that nightmare.
Yeah, let's detour from that.
Thank you. Yeah. That's,
What's a question that you've always wished somebody would ask you that never gets asked?
why are you so awesome, Dr. Fairen?
Why are you so awesome, Dr. Fairen?
Just the way it is.
Oh.
Yeah. Just, me. No. Big question. I've had a lot of good questions asked. One of my favorite ones was, why is it that Jesus isn't a necromancer? And I'm like, that is a brilliant effing question. And to me, that's, you figured it out. I can't answer it. Like, and those are the kinds of questions I like. Or somebody just saying something different. Like it's not that I have questions that I want them to ask. I have questions I don't want them to ask.
We all have questions we don't want to have asked,
Yeah.
for sure.
And always, and it's not that they're bad. It's just, again, like, but I don't know. Any question that makes me think, or doesn't, or challenges me. Actually, I love that when a student brings up something that puts me on the defensive. Like, that's the best. Like, I think, if you think I'm blowing smoke up your ass, you call me on it. I have to defend it. That's why I'm getting paid the big bucks. Big bucks in quote. But those, I guess that would be I couldn't say one question, but the type.
Okay.
Like push back. And always question. Like you should, every source you read, me, your books, whatever. Always challenge it. I mean, that's the important part, I think.
That's what academia is all about.
You'd think. I mean,
higher up at least.
Well, you'd be surprised. People get, very dogmatic in their ideas.
There's gatekeepers for
Very
sure.
much.
In fact, the scientific world and academia fits in there pretty tightly. Is a lot like religion in its own ways.
Oh yeah, like the scholar I mentioned, Jonathan Smith. I mean, for the longest time, you couldn't critique him because he was perfect. He was the god of religious studies. People would, but there'd be so much defense that it was almost hard to want to critique him. And I love his stuff, so I have trouble anyway, but I can see problems. I just ignore them because I'm dogmatically, bought into that. But anybody who pushes back, that's the best. Like I had a student in Alberta. She wrote a paper. I told her, like, on Joseph Campbell. She wanted to write a big paper on Joseph Campbell. I'm like, I hate fucking Joseph Campbell. It's so hackneyed. So she wrote a paper on it, and she got an A because she used the sources right. I think I said, this paper's terrible. Joseph Campbell's a hack, but you did great. Here's your A. And I was kind of joking, but, so push back. That would be the question. And anybody who takes a class should push back. And if this prof doesn't like it, then push harder. Go to the TA or I don't know. Just don't let the props be the gatekeepers. That's the worst, I think. Hope I was never like that. I was never like that, was I?
I mean, I only had you for intro after my semester with Pat, so.
Oh, Pat, shit. Yeah. Pat Hart, whatever.
I enjoyed you both.
Pat's amazing. I shouldn't tease him.
Honestly, there's very few instructors I had at the U of A that I didn't really enjoy working with.
That's fantastic. I never took classes there. I came in halfway through my doctoral work. I wanted to work with Willie Braun, and so I took like one class with him, and I just did thesis work for however long. I think I taught way more than I ever took, which is weird when I think about it. Yeah. So that would be the answer I would give.
Cool. Well, I don't think we have any more questions.
Oh, thank God.
And we've run up to the time that I warned you we would take.
Oh, really? What time is it?
A little after 8:30.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Like 8:45.
Shoot.
Yeah.
Oh.
This has been a good one.
It's hard to say with the
I know.
light
Right?
change. Yeah, I'm not used to that anymore.
Is there anything you want to promote? You want to let our audience know what you're up to, where they can find you?
You can find me at Oklahoma State University in the Religious Studies page. There's a link there. There's a really interesting group. It's a group I've done interviews with. They're called the Gnostic Wisdom Network. And they're like this sort of modern Gnostic church that are nerdy and want to talk about Cthulhu and weird religious study stuff. Definitely take a listen to them too.
Cool.
Unless that bogarts your group, then you can just cut that out.
We'll see.
They're actually really nice folks. They're just so gorpy and weird. It's great. Like you guys would get along great with them. So.
Cool.
Perfect.
I just called you gorpy and weird. I meant that as a compliment.
It's fine.
Thank you. All right, good. Yeah. So no, I mean, thanks for having me. This is awesome. I'm glad we were able to do it face to face as opposed to online. That would have sucked, unfortunately. So yeah. It's kind of funny that I ended up here at the time that you were wanting to do this. So
Yeah,
That was great. Check out Glen's book on Amazon. Let's get more sales on that.
yeah, maybe get 20 copies sold. And if you want a free copy, you can just ask me. I'll give it.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, I'll give you the PDF.
that'd be great.
I
would have loved to read it in preparation for this, so I could ask you a whole bunch of questions for it. And I'm like, I don't know if I can shell out $100 for this book.
No,
right now.
my God, I've never paid that for it either.
we can have Glen back.
Absolutely.
After we have Gnosticism on our list anyway, so
Yeah.
we'll get some
Do
stuff on our
you?
thing.
Oh,
we got
that'd be
all-
awesome. Yeah.
We should show you our list of things. You probably have some ideas for.
Yeah, that sounds like great. That would be fantastic. I mean, Gnosticism is just so damn sexy. Love that stuff. Gospel of Thomas. Apocrypha of John.
Especially when you know what it is, instead of this vague menace in the corner that people just don't look at.
Well, yeah, like God's evil and wants to murder us. You didn't hear that in Sunday school.
Right.
The snake is the good guy. Eve, like, just, truth bombs all the angels and messes with them, and they try to rape a tree. Like, it's so weird. Like, it just gets weirder as it goes on. It's so fun. Yeah, it's so fun. Oh God, I'm such a weirdo. Okay.
That's why you're here with us.
Yeah.
And as for us,
You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and
Discord.
definitely Discord. We have loads of fun sharing memes and good discussions on religious studies. And we've also got our Patreon, where you can support us. And we've got YouTube, and we've got
Spreadshirt for some great merch.
so much merch on our spread shop. It's great. In fact, we've got a great band shirt I'm trying real hard to promote with John the Baptist and his many heads.
Does it come in tall size?
It does.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, then I'm going. That sounds great.
So again, thank you to Dr. Glen Fairen for joining us today, and
And thank you to all of our listeners for joining us as well. Peace be with you.
By the late Middle Ages, the Christian prophecy had fulfilled itself.